Greetings from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. It is super exciting to be joining IntNSA's first virtual global conference. I wish that we could all be together in person, but really value that we are doing the conference virtually. Yay, looks like we are ready to go. So as mentioned earlier, I am joining you from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Just needed to get our nation's flag on the screen one more time. My name is Tuxephoni Winsor. I am a master's prepared registered nurse. I am the manager of the professional development team, and I am the acting director of the practice supports and provincial partnership portfolio with the Provincial Addiction and Mental Health of Alberta Health Services. I have no conflicts of interest to share, and I have no financial disclosures to make. It is an absolute pleasure to be presenting today on Alberta's evolution in addiction education, featuring the provincial addiction curricula and experiential skills, otherwise known as PACE's learning pathway. I thought I would keep the presentation generally high level and address the why, how, what, and where of the PACE's learning pathway. So why PACEs? Well, as you are all well aware, addiction is a highly prevalent, chronic, and treatable condition. It is the one condition that commonly occurs with any other medical condition, and yet it remains the one topic of instruction that is most frequently excluded from health science curricula. Elective, sporadic, critically neglected, ill-equipped, inadequate, unprepared. These descriptors of the addiction education landscape are by no means new. In fact, I think the earliest citation was in the late 70s by Urbanski, and by the late 90s, individuals such as El Gabali and Crockford and even Nora Volkoff were sounding the alarm bells. Sadly, following an international literature review in 2017 that our team conducted, we confirmed that these exact same themes remained. Nothing had changed. We knew that we could do better, and we strongly felt that our patients and their families that receive services from our workforce deserved better. So how could we do that? For us, the 6 quality dimensions featured within Alberta's Quality Matrix for Health, as you see listed across the top of the slide, they were absolutely invaluable in guiding our stepped process. So we started off with the first 2 quality dimensions being acceptability and effectiveness, because we really wanted to ensure that whatever it was that we created right from the start would hit the mark. So in order to do this, we formed 3 distinct committees. One being the PACE's Accreditation Planning Committee, which consisted primarily of researchers, academics, and subject matter experts in the field of addiction. And their sole purpose was to ensure that the deliverable met the standards for scientific integrity, to ensure that we could accredit the curriculum with the medical colleges and regulatory bodies within Alberta, Canada. We also established a sponsorship coalition committee, which consisted of executive leadership from the province's health sectors, clinical experts across the addiction continuum, and most importantly, held members with lived experience from the recovery community. Their responsibility was to identify gaps, risks, and to provide feedback as the deliverable was being established. And finally, we established, or of course, we also established a PACE's project team, which in essence, the sole job was to get it done. To ensure the quality dimension of appropriateness, our team created and broadly distributed a provincial learning needs assessment. This was a real priority initiative. The survey was distributed to medical and psychosocial practitioners across Alberta's addiction and mental health workforce, and participants were asked to rate in order of their learning priority the 17 technical competency domains established by the Canadian Centre on Substance Use and Addiction, as well as 19 of the United Kingdom's NICE care pathways that were specific to addiction and mental health. Analysis of the learning needs assessment focused on identifying what were the highest priority competencies domains as well as clinical care pathways as rated by over 1,000 respondents. These are not listed exhaustively on the screen, but rather they do show at minimum the top 8 priority topics. As you can see, blue indicates high priority, red is moderate, and green is low. Analysis of the learning needs assessment not only addressed appropriateness, but it also addressed the quality dimension of accessibility and efficiency. So in addition to evidence-informed, objective, and interprofessional competency aligned, we confirmed that today's tech-savvy learner preferred experiential training that is easily accessed regardless of time, location, and device, as well as they really wanted training that provided an opportunity for immediate application of the skill learned and followed by individualized feedback on their performance. This component of the survey analysis was a bit of a light bulb moment for our team in regards to the design elements and confirmed for us that we would be completely avoiding the traditional face-to-face training delivery and that we would focus completely on virtual delivery, and really to capitalize on techniques pioneered in the video game industry. What we didn't realize at the time was that the decision to create PACES as a virtual learning pathway would also address the quality dimensions of safety. But beyond the obvious public health safety features of virtualized training, the creation of PACES included additional risk mitigation within its competency-based design. So what do I mean by that? Well, as you know, addiction is complex and it's multifaceted. It requires comprehensive assessment and treatment to be successfully managed. Yet, addiction education is most often, if not always, delivered within the confines of one's own discipline. So in the creation of PACES, our team was very purposeful in moving away from discipline-specific competencies. And what we did instead is we established an interprofessional competency crosswalk, which would guide the creation of the training objectives within our curriculum. So we did this by clustering according to synonymous definition the core competency domains for physicians, addiction medicine specialists, nurses, nurse practitioners, psychologists, pharmacists, and including psychosocial rehabilitation practitioners. And you can see this is listed across the slide at the top, and the synonymous definition clustering I've included at the little bar below here. Our next step was then to retitle for simplicity those clustered synonymous definitions, and we aligned them to the CanMed's 7 core competency domains, again for simplicity's sake. What we did then was we cross-referenced all of them against each of the CCSA 17 technical competencies to identify the number of aligning subcompetencies. So for example, if you look here, under the column of medical expert, we see that when working as an interprofessional team, physicians would be bringing to the table 3 subcompetencies as relates to knowledge for practice in the appropriate administration of medication. The addiction medicine specialist will be bringing 2 subcompetencies, the nurses 3, and the pharmacist also 3 subcompetencies. So now if you're a little bit like me, graphs and lines and all that data can be a little bit confusing. So here is my very quick visual depiction of the safety feature that we were aiming for by establishing an interprofessional competency crosswalk, because we really wanted to move away from this and we wanted to move it towards this. Yay, teamwork. Okay, so about halfway through the presentation now, and we're going to focus away from the why and the how of PACES and to really dive into, okay, so what is PACES? Well, the PACES learning pathway is self-paced and progressive. It's virtually accessible and compatible across a variety of platforms. It is created in collaboration with the Canadian Society of Addiction Medicine, and it is formally accredited as a continuing medical education with a variety of our medical colleges within Canada, as well as our Addiction Counselor Certification Federation, and a variety of regulatory colleges such as nursing, social work, psychology, and pharmacy. The learner, when they enroll into the PACES learning pathway, completes a pre-competency assessment and then self-navigates through the 4 pathways: beginning, developing, advancing, and mastering. Within each of the 4 pathways, the learner self-selects from a variety of e-learning modules and or EPA simulations, which I'll speak about in a little bit. Upon completion of that selected, upon completion of the selected e-modules or EPA sims, the learner then has the option of requesting a CME certification prior to then progressing on to the subsequent pathway. So in essence, with the sequential pathways, our goal was to advance the learner from foundational theory through core competency development and on to mastering the skills required for the assessment and treatment of primary addiction and concurrent psychiatric disorders. So the beginning pathway of PACES, aptly titled Beginning, it consists of 7 modules addressing the foundational concepts of addiction and mental health, and those are listed there on your screen. As noted, the absolute maximum duration to complete any of those e-learning modules is no more than 1 hour. That's the absolute max. The one thing I wanted to highlight about the PACES beginning pathway is that the target audience for this phase is not restricted to health professionals. The academic content is provided in plain language and is absolutely appropriate for family, friends, and or general public learning. Once completing the beginning pathway, the learner can then move into the developing pathway, which also consists of 7 modules. The focus, though, in this pathway is on the application of knowledge and development of skill in the core competencies listed. Interactive video vignettes are featured within each of the e-modules to allow for that beginning practice of applying that skill. Our team is currently working with the Canadian Society of Addiction Medicine to complete these e-learning modules. Unfortunately, right in the midst of developing them, the majority of our staff was redeployed to assist with COVID-19. And it significantly impacted our time frame, as well as we're still not having approval to pursue with face-to-face recording with the whole live acting and video demonstration component of these modules. So currently they are not going to be available in the second pathway of PACES, but rather what we are offering in lieu until the modules are finalized is the learner will be able to enroll in the standard approach to concurrent capable Zoom workshop series, which also addresses the core competency domains. And inevitably, once the e-learning modules are finished, we will be uploading them to the second pathway. The third pathway of PACES is the advancing pathway, and this features the prototype design that our team has been creating over the past 2 years. And that is the EPA, Entrustable Professional Activity Simulations. A common concern voiced by educators regarding competency-based education is how do we create a learning event that reflects the complex integration of competencies required in day-to-day practice when we break them apart in most curriculas and we teach them individually. So as such, entrustable professional activities have been identified as that gateway to real world education. It's a design that transitions us away from that confined focus on clinical knowledge and moves us towards focusing on clinical performance relevant to real life practice. So we became very, very interested in EPA simulations about 3 years ago. We embarked upon an international review of existing EPA templates. And what we found is the Royal Australian and New Zealand College of Psychiatrists template became our favored design. We moved to adopt that after discussion with our accreditation and planning committee, and we evolved it further to also feature the interprofessional competency crosswalk I mentioned earlier in the presentation, as well as developed an aligning storyboard with branching conversation trees and clinical decision points to align to each one of the EPA sims created. We currently have available 6 EPA simulations as listed on the screen. We are currently in post-production for 2, and we are planning to develop the 3 EPA simulations as listed under development. The storyboards are done. We're again just waiting to get that approval to go ahead and do face-to-face recording within the C19 environment. In creation of the simulations, we opted for live actors rather than simulated avatars. So I wanted to show you just a really quick little clip which is actually the opening scenario for our EPA sim responding to an opioid poisoning. Let's hope that works. Yay, it does. So as you can see, the PACES EPA sims are action orientated, where the learner interacts with characters in a simulated clinical environment. What you didn't get to see is that the next slide in the EPA sim is a decision branch requesting you to decide what to do about your snoring boyfriend. The final phase of our PACES learning pathway is titled Mastering, and the Mastering pathway was intended to provide live simulation training using our actors and our experts across e-simulation labs within the province of Alberta. Obviously, this is still on hold during the C19 environment. Fortunately, very much like Pathway 2, we will be launching a substitute within the mastering phase, and that is the Alberta Addiction Education Sessions. And these are simply fantastic, so it's a pleasure to speak to these as well. The AAES features a panel of subject matter experts, individuals with lived experience, and provides interactive de-identified case analysis with our live actors, as well as interactive polling and live Q&A with the attending audience. The theme focus for this year's scientific programs is recovery pathways, and recovery-oriented systems of care. All sessions can be accessed live via streaming or can be viewed following in post-production. So this brings us now, oh, sorry, didn't switch over, there. So this brings us now to when of PACES. So we are currently entering the third year of PACES development with an intended launch of October 2020. So I'm really hoping that by the time you are viewing this presentation, you will actually be able to log into our PACES Vanity URL and access the PACES pathway. We absolutely will be continuously adding new e-learning modules as well as new EPA simulations over the upcoming years as the trends and focus switches. Last but certainly not least, where is PACES? Well, as I mentioned earlier, we have a vanity URL so that regardless of when or where, PACES will be accessible to you virtually. And all you have to do is click or type in your URL, www.ahs.ca/PACES. And this brings us to the conclusion of the presentation. Thank you so much for selecting my workshop presentation. Thank you for spending the last 20 minutes with me. And please do not hesitate to email me if you have any questions at all regarding the PACES learning pathway. My email is listed on the screen, tuxephoni.winsor@ahs.ca, and I will absolutely respond to you as soon as I possibly can. Thank you very much again, and farewell from Canada. Woohoo! Keep well and all the best to you and yours.